I have one more question, and then I think I'll be good.
Sure.
Cool. So let's turn now to the first epistle of Clement, and he mentions basically multiple bishops in Rome. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what you will find is a model of the church back then that is surprisingly different than today. Because you have the monoepiscopacy, I think, prevalent in many sources, but the idea of the plurality is not only necessitated by the lack of any unified form of mass communication, but this has continued long into the Middle Ages as well. Where in a city, you might have different bishops, but
Multiple
only one
bishops.
metropolitan. And I won't mention the names of my colleagues who feel the same way, but I would sense that this would be a pastoral exigency for today as well. Bishops end up practically being bureaucrats and administrators who can't preach and teach on a daily basis precisely because they've got this sprawling bureaucracy to administer finances and everything else, personnel, human relations. And so in the early church, you do find bishops in Rome, but none of them are claiming to be the successor to Peter. And there isn't any debate in Clement or others that you have multiple successors to Peter. By the time you move from 12 bishops as successors to the 12 with adding Matthias, you end up with literally hundreds of bishops as the gospel spreads from Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. But it really does arise as the practical necessity to have a father figure over the expanding household in any given region. And because Rome wasn't just like Steubenville, a small city that you can just kind of walk through in an hour, you have lots of neighborhoods, lots of regions of Rome. You're going to end up with lots of bishops as well.
So what about the idea that there had to have been, if the papacy is true, there had to have been one bishop who was head over all of the other bishops, but he doesn't mention that. Does that count as any evidence against the papacy in your view? That he doesn't mention one who's over the others?
It doesn't arise to the level of an objection in as much as it's coming from Clement.
Okay.
I mean, even if Clement is only a presbyter at this point, he's a presbyter in the Church of Rome, and he's writing with this awareness that the Corinthians recognize an authority that pertains to the Church of Rome. And if Clement is writing, as the majority of scholars suppose, as the bishop of Rome, so it's Linus, Cletus, Clement, Sixtus, Cornelius, all of these that are named in the Eucharistic prayer are the successors to Peter. Generally, all were martyrs for the first century or so. Clement is writing in a way that I would say is similar to Peter. When Peter writes 1st and 2nd Peter, he's not flexing his muscles. He's not strutting his stuff. He's talking about how these elders are shepherds. He refers to himself as an elder. Just as Jesus says, the first shall be last. It takes Peter a long time to learn that lesson. But the greatest among you shall be one as one who serves. I think what you're finding in Peter's epistles is what you're finding an echo of in Clement as well. That there's an awareness that just because there is a center doesn't mean there's no circle. In fact, it's what makes the circle, it makes what holds together. The center will hold as the circle expands, and you end up with literally thousands of bishops. And they're not singularly traceable back.
He's touching the computer. He's touching the computer. He's making an adjustment.
No, I'm not.
I just think of Swan and Jimmy. I wish they were in the room because I can address this, but I'm not a church historian.
So what Trent Horn has said about it is that just because there's mention of multiple bishops doesn't mean that there's no head bishop over all of the other bishops.
That's right.
Just like if you were to mention that the Democrats decided on something, if you were to say that in today's language, that doesn't mean that there's no head over all of the Democrats, the House Speaker.
That's right. And in New York City, Minneapolis, and lots of metropolitan areas, you have the Archbishop, and then you also have other bishops in that city. I was just in Pittsburgh, where Bishop David Zubik is, but he has what we call, auxiliary bishops. But they're bishops. They're not like, vice presidents or co-pilots. They're bishops. They could lay their hands upon and therefore ordain priests and that sort of thing. So there really is, in the teaching of Vatican II, the plenitude of apostolic authority resides not just in the archbishop, but even in his assistants, those bishops that we would call auxiliary.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought about the video.